Welcome to Cybersecurity Awareness TV, episode 404, recorded August 27, 2022. My name is Mac Jackson Jr. I'm a cybersecurity consultant and researcher. If this is the first time you've seen our show, I discuss cybersecurity awareness news, tips that you could use, and interviews with industry experts on how to protect yourself, your business, and your family from the fastest growing crimes of the 21st century. I would like to thank all of our viewers who help support our show here on WWDBTV, Cybersecurity Awareness TV for the last several years. And if you would like to be a part of our show in our community, definitely go to my website at macjacksonjr.com. That's macjacksonjr.com. Folks, remember to share, like, and subscribe. Hit that notification button so you can stay in tune with all the updates regarding cybersecurity awareness education. And also, if you'd like to sponsor our show, feel free to do that as well by joining our community group on the Patreon channel, folks, at patreon.com/MacJacksonJr. On today's episode, we're going to talk about cybersecurity news. In the cybersecurity news, we're talking about the new student loan forgiveness that have been planned for borrowers that we're going to discuss today, as well as the scammers, folks. That's right. There's scammers out there as well trying to get your money relating to the student loans. In our second segment, we're going to talk about Twitter. Twitter, folks, Twitter's also under fire again, not just for the data breach they've had recently, but this time a whistleblower has information that says that Twitter is not who they're saying they are and are not protecting customers and users' information. And of course, as we do every week in our third segment, we talk about what you could do to protect yourself in our weekly cybersecurity protection tips. In our first segment, student loan forgiveness and scammers. Last week, President Biden announced that his plan on canceling billions of dollars on student borrowing debt. The plan includes cancellation of $20,000 in Pell Grants, $10,000 for borrowers owing over $20,000, that is, and having incomes less than $120,000, $25,000, that is, per year. And they will have their grants and their loans canceled up to $20,000. This is remarkable, folks, especially if that you are a student out there that has to pay this money back to the federal government. This will be great for our economy, and hopefully all the borrowers out there and students will use this extra money in investing in their education and in their careers. In our story, we were reporting about these loan forgiveness program, and this is very, very important to have this, but folks, there's another part of cyber connected to this, and that is there are scammers, folks, that are trying to take the borrower's information and monies from them because they're so excited about having this loan forgiveness done. Scammers have found a way to try to coerce and exploit individuals from this. We have a story I'd like to share with you, and this story is reported from CBC News Network. Check out this story, folks.
President Biden unveiled his administration's plan to cancel billions of dollars in student loan debt. The plan will cancel loans for borrowers making less than $125,000 a year, including $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. The federal loan payment pause is also being extended through the end of the year. Mr. Biden says today's action will do more than just take away debt from those who need it most, but will help Americans for years to come.
I believe my plan is responsible and fair. It focuses the benefit on middle class and working families. It helps both current and future borrowers, and will fix a badly broken system. And these actions build on my administration's effort to make college more affordable in the first place.
The president says the loan cancellations will impact 43 million people nationwide.
If you have student loans, you're probably wondering how the president's student loan forgiveness announcement will impact your debt. Well, the first thing that you need to know, this only applies to government loans, meaning federal direct loans and Pell Grants. Any loans that you have from a private organization like a bank, well, they're not going to qualify. With a regular federal loan, $10,000 can be forgiven. If you have Pell Grants, which are awarded to low-income students, you're looking at up to $20,000 in debt forgiveness. So how does all of this work? Let's say you have Pell Grants and you're qualified to receive $20,000 in loan forgiveness. If you owe $15,000 in federal student loans, well, then the government is going to forgive all of that debt in its entirety. You're only eligible if you make less than $125,000 a year, or if you're married, regardless of whether or not you have kids, $250,000 per couple. Well, this plan also includes capping the amount of loan payments that you owe on a monthly basis. And the plan also brings it down from 10% of your salary to 5%. It limits how long you're paying this debt to 20 years. The White House says it also will provide fixes to try and make student loan payments and forgiveness easier to manage, especially for military and public service workers.
Let's go ahead right now and bring in Roy Paul. He is the executive director of Sense-Ability, spelled C-E-N-T-S Ability, which is a nonprofit aimed at educating teens about financial literacy and management. Roy, welcome. It's good to talk to you again. So how much is this plan going to cost the government? We heard President Biden talk about concerns about where this money was going to come from. So as far as we know, how is the government going to pay for this?
Yeah, so it's going to cost about $200 to $300 billion, depending on who you talk to. And I think what the president is really trying to underscore, more so than the cost of the program, is this notion that he is investing in low-income people who've been struggling with debt. Right? There's all this talk about the final total package plan and then inflation impact. And I think what he was trying to hone in on this message is that whatever the impact ends up being, whatever it ends up costing, he's willing to take the hit to invest in people who really need economic relief right now.
So, Roy, we heard a couple of questions being thrown at the president about the fairness for people who maybe had to scrape together their funds to pay off those loans. We didn't hear him address that. How much of a financial impact will this plan actually have on people with student loan debts? And is there a feeling, are you hearing from people about relative fairness in terms of this new announcement?
Yeah, there's no way to really fix the notion that it's unfair, because for many people it is. And if you are one of those people listening to the president talk right now about this plan and you've already paid off your loans, you're sitting there going, wait, what happened to my $10,000 or $20,000? A lot of people really do make life-altering decisions based on their student debt. They take out a cheaper mortgage for a home. They may not be able to drive the car that they want to. Their vacations might look a little bit different. So they've sacrificed, and they're not going to get a rebate. And so the president doesn't want to talk about it too much because it is unfair for those who are in that situation.
Well, Roy, we're hearing criticism from some Republicans saying this plan will only make inflation worse. I know Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has criticized this plan, calling it a, quote, wildly unfair redistribution of wealth. What's your take on that criticism?
Yeah, you know, at the heart of whatever this is going to cost, it's going to be really placed on the taxpayers, right? That's who eventually is going to end up paying for it. And that is really what's driving some of the negative responses that you see, because included in a lot of those people who are going to be paying for it are people who never went to college themselves, right? And so this redistribution argument is valid in the sense that you're talking about people in this country who are really trying to get up out of this financial crisis by themselves. And now this is one more thing to add on top of all of it. And so I think the president, this is really going to be a messaging strategy for the president. How effective is he and his administration going to be in really selling the idea of helping people come out of this financial crisis as opposed to anything else? That's really what's going to be the driving factor here. It's really how they message it to the American people.
Roy, you teach teens about financial literacy, management. A lot of times, one of the problems is that is taught, it's handed down from parents who are either aware or not aware. Presumably, some of the teens that you work with don't come from a background where they've had a lot of instruction on this. How will this forgiveness affect them?
Yeah, you know, for me, I look at two things. One, many people that we teach and across the country don't even know what their monthly student payment loan is going to be when they graduate in 4 years. They take out the debt and they figure it out when they graduate. What we want to do is change habits, right? If you're going to go to school, there's nothing wrong with going to college and taking out loans to do it. But if you're going to take out $50,000, $60,000 in debt, maybe there's a least expensive alternative. Can you go to a community college to start, or maybe a state school? And then on the back end, when we talk about all this forgiveness that people are going to get, I really want people to really understand that when you have that $10,000 or $20,000 forgiveness, hopefully that then is redistributed in your own personal bank account. How are you then going to use that extra money you didn't have to spend to make sure that everything else adds up evenly in your account? And I hope people really do take advantage of that.
All right. Roy Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So folks, as you can see, the student loan forgiveness is a good program that the Biden administration has created for all students and borrowers. And now we just hope that the students will use this extra money they have to pursue and pay off other debts that they may have in their life. But with that said, folks, now we have to deal with the scammers. In our next story, we're going to talk to you about how scammers are trying to take your information from you and to get you to pay for things that you had no idea that you were even involved in. In this next story, folks, the Federal Trade Commission warns all borrowers to be aware of these potential scammers, especially those regarding the student loan forgiveness program. Here in this next clip, you will see this from KJRJ TV out of Tulsa, Channel 2.
The president's announcement of student loan forgiveness has proven scammers are ready to pounce at a moment's notice.
Almost as soon as the big news that some student loan debt would be forgiven, a local college graduate says she was ripped off. New at 6, 2 News Oklahoma problem solver Pete Knutson tells us how.
Lurking in the shadows, scammers seem to know when to strike, when the time is right. And this time, they target student loan forgiveness. A Tulsa mom, Stacia, told us, "I had just heard of the federal plan to forgive thousands of dollars of student loans. That was good news for my daughter until I found out she had been scammed trying to get more of her loans forgiven." Here's what Stacia says happened. Her daughter got a call saying they could double the $10,000 forgiveness the government announced to $20,000. All she had to do was pay a $99 fee with her debit card or checking account, which she did. When she told me her good news, Stacia says, "I knew she had been ripped off. We checked her account, and it had been cleared out. It was less than $400, but it was all she had."
If anything comes to you out of the blue, that should be a red flag right there.
The Federal Trade Commission says they're never surprised by how quickly scammers can strike.
Scammers follow the headlines. You know, they just pivot and follow whatever is new.
It's an important lesson for everyone, including those just out of college. Again, never trust any call or text or email that you're not expecting. Never give out your personal or financial information. And remember, if you give out your debit or checking account number, you have fewer protections than if you use a credit card. Pete Knutson, 2 News Oklahoma, Problem Solvers.
As you can see, folks, these hackers are always trying to find ways to take your information and to get your money out of your pockets and from your checking accounts. We must stay proactive in our defense against these type of cyber attacks and these types of hackers, folks. And the best way to do that, folks, like we say on our show here at Cybersecurity Awareness TV, hashtag stay cyberwoke. We'll be right back after these messages. Hello folks, this is Mac Jackson Jr. from Vanderson Cyber Group. The problem with businesses today is that they are affected by cyber attacks from around the world, but companies are not sure of what to do. Normally, they are reactive instead of proactive. But folks, cyber attacks can affect your bottom line and will affect you financially, legally, and your business reputation. Here at Vanderson Cyber Group, we can help you develop a policy by training your employees on what to do if they are involved in a cyber attack and how to mitigate it and fight against it. Folks, we call it here hashtag stay cyberwoke. And that's Vanderson Cyber Group here in Las Vegas and around the world. You can reach me, folks, at VandersonCyberGroup.com or my website, MacJacksonJr.com as well. Here locally, 702-868-0808. Give us a call today, folks. We must fight back. Hi folks, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we're talking about what the whistleblower said and what he knew regarding Twitter. That's right, folks, with Twitter. It's been really interesting to see what's going on with Twitter. Folks, social media and our privacy is a big concern to all of us. We have trust in that the social media companies will provide us with security in our personal data and our personal information. Well, recently, there have been several different instances of social media companies that have been hacked with data breaches. And there's talk of what's going on inside the organization, what they're doing with our data and our information. This week, a former employee of Twitter claims that the company's management lied to the consumer users as well as the federal agencies regarding data privacy. He states that there were internal policies and procedures within cybersecurity that are not up to par, and they have misled the public about the company's vulnerabilities. As so much, in another related story, Elon Musk supposedly was going to buy into Twitter, and he's pulling back on this, stating that he was not told of these sort of misleading information, and he wants to back out of it. So it's opening up a whole firestorm here, what's going on with Twitter and Elon Musk, but most importantly, our information that we have and we provide to these social media companies every day. Remember, folks, back in 2020, Twitter had a big data breach that compromised millions of users' data. During this type of attack, celebrities had their accounts controlled by hackers, and the hackers were asking other users to send donations and information to a fake website to get information pretending to be the actual Twitter users. A lot of people were affected by this, including President Barack Obama and President George Bush. So these are something that's very, very serious here. If they can hack into accounts that are that high ranking, if you would, what can they do for other people, for the rest of the people, right? We must stay aware of this type of attack. Now, again, from Twitter's point of view, they have denied all these claims by the ex-employee and the whistleblower, and said they are working on their cybersecurity postures, and they're working on it by having the best teams possible to control these types of cyber threats for their company. Stay tuned, folks. There will definitely be more about this, but I'd like to take a look at a video I have for you from our research from PBS NewsHour on this particular type of issue going on with Twitter. Check this out.
Twitter is under fire after a new whistleblower is alleging that the social network has, quote, extreme, egregious deficiencies in its cybersecurity defense. The new complaint says Twitter is an easy target for hackers and could put users' information at risk. Stephanie Tsai tells us more.
Amna, the whistleblower is a former head of security at Twitter and was previously a renowned hacker himself, known as Mudge. Now, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are looking into Peter Zatko's claims. Among many other serious allegations, Zatko says the company misled regulators about its ability and efforts to get rid of fake or spam accounts, a claim that could help Elon Musk, who is trying to back out of a deal to buy the company for $44 billion. With more, I'm joined by Elizabeth Dwoskins, Silicon Valley correspondent for The Washington Post, who helped break this story. Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining us. We've talked often about Twitter's security problems over the years, but what Zatko is alleging here is deception, lies to government regulators, the media, and users. Can you just boil down for us just a couple of the most egregious allegations here and tell us why people should be concerned?
Yeah, these are explosive claims that could be incredibly damaging to Twitter. You're absolutely right that Twitter's had security issues over the years, a security disaster, many would say. But now we have Peter Zatko, Mudge, alleging that they were lying to the board, they were lying to investors, they were lying to their regulators. And these are huge allegations. He says that too many employees had access to internal company systems, that the security was so bad that Twitter was literally on the brink of shutdown, that they didn't delete data that they claimed that they deleted, that he tried to present contrary information to the board and was prevented by the CEO. And one thing when you think about, okay, why does the average person care? Because not everyone's on Twitter. Twitter is incredibly influential platform because it has politicians, it has influencers, public figures. And what happens on Twitter can sway the stock price of companies. It can cause national security alerts. Imagine if someone saw on Twitter there's a bomb at the White House. That would cause the public to go into a panic. And so if Twitter security, as Mudge alleges, is as weak as he alleges, then you have this exposure to bad actors that can then influence the public discourse, whether it's on politics, the future of companies, or security, the public safety.
There are also some very serious claims about foreign influence, Elizabeth, including that Twitter knowingly hired an agent who worked for the government of India, who had, quote, direct, unsupervised access to the company's systems and user data. If that is true, this seems to be about much more than the security of the average Twitter user's account info, or even about the reliability of the platform.
Yeah, that is the most salacious and troubling allegation in the complaint. And it's actually one that was the hardest for us to substantiate, because a lot of the complaint is redacted, and we believe that the India stuff is the redacted stuff. About last year, Twitter was required by the Indian government actually to hire 2 executives that would report directly to the government of India. All tech companies were. And Twitter's pushback is that this is what Mudge is referring to. But we have sourcing that says that potentially there was another government agent. But again, it was the weakest part of the complaint because so much is redacted.
For its part, Twitter also says they fired Peter Zatko for, quote, ineffective leadership and poor performance, and they called the timing of these allegations opportunistic. What other explanations are you getting, Elizabeth, from the company and hearing from employees?
Well, one of the things that I've heard from a lot of employees is that despite Mudge being a famous hacker, when he came into Twitter, he had this arrogant attitude where he was basically acted like he knew things about subjects that were outside of his expertise. One of the most interesting examples, I think, in the complaint, and that comes from my reporting as well, is related to this claim that he makes that Twitter was lying to Elon Musk about spam and bots. He literally says Twitter's lying in the complaint. And one of the things he says, for example, is that he couldn't get a straight answer from anyone at Twitter about the prevalence of spam on the platform. He says he asked and couldn't get an answer. But my own reporting, including a document I reviewed from Twitter, shows that actually Twitter does have an internal number called spam prevalence, and it was presented at a board meeting that Mudge attended. So maybe he didn't like that number, didn't believe in the number, maybe he dismissed it. I feel like the truth here is somewhere in between.
And you mentioned Elon Musk. The timing does seem opportune for Mr. Musk because some of the claims deal directly with this problem of spam and fake accounts, which Musk has cited as a reason for withdrawing his bid to buy the company. How could this case help him, or this testimony, I guess, help him in his trial, which begins soon?
Yeah, as I said, I feel like this entire complaint was a big call to Elon Musk to subpoena me, depose me. And actually what we saw today is that Elon's team is going to be deposing him. Now, I think that even if all the claims don't turn out to be accurate, I think this could open up a Pandora's box in the Elon Musk case. The trial's, set to happen if it doesn't settle in October. It's very soon. There's a hearing tomorrow. And what we think is that there's already been this fight over discovery and data, who's going to get access, for example, to whether Elon's team is going to get access to internal records of Twitter executives. Well, you can see that something like this gives them huge leverage to say, wait, we actually need more executives. We need to find out what's going on. I think it even goes beyond the spam and bots issue that Elon has been consistently raising.
And a whole can of worms for Twitter users as well. Elizabeth Dwoskin with The Washington Post, thank you for joining the NewsHour as always.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, that's amazing. And there's more. The whistleblower says that the security vulnerabilities and weaknesses within Twitter are a threat to national security, our infrastructure, and the like. There's definitely something about this, folks, that we need to investigate, find out more. But until then, here's another clip I'd like you to check out from a report from CNN News. Check this out.
Twitter poses a threat to national security and democracy. The CNN exclusive this morning, coming from a new whistleblower report. I'm John Berman. Brianna is off. CNN Chief White House correspondent Caitlin Collins with me this morning with some big news.
This is major news, and it's fascinating to see how Elon Musk is now responding to all of this.
That's right. We do have a new response that says national security, media, business implications, and it's all about alleged security vulnerabilities and recklessness. The disclosure obtained by CNN and also the Washington Post comes from Twitter's former head of security. Peter Zatko's claims were sent last month to Congress and several federal agencies.
In this 200-page disclosure, Zatko portrays a chaotic environment at a mismanaged company that allows too many staffers access to central controls and sensitive information without adequate oversight. Zatko also alleges that some of the company's senior-most executives have tried to cover up Twitter's vulnerabilities. CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan is here with the exclusive details. And Donnie, what exactly are we seeing? What are the main headlines out of this disclosure?
That's right, Caitlin. A lot to break down in this. This disclosure is in the hands of multiple U.S. law enforcement agencies, including the SEC and Department of Justice. And today, Zatko is speaking out for the first time to CNN. Have a look.
Ready? Yes.
Why are you coming forward?
All of my life, I've been about finding places where I can go and make a difference.
This is Peter Zatko. Until January of this year, he was head of security at Twitter, but now he's a whistleblower. And he says Twitter's security problems are so grave, they are a risk to national security and democracy.
I think Twitter is a critical resource to the entire world. I think it's an extremely important platform.
He's handed over information about the company to U.S. law enforcement agencies, including the SEC, FTC, and the Department of Justice.
May I ask your name in the middle?
I'm Mudge.
Zatko is better known in the hacking world by his nickname Mudge. He's been a renowned cybersecurity expert for decades.
His roots are in hacking, figuring out how computers and software work.
That expertise might be why Jack Dorsey, then CEO of Twitter, hired Zatko after the company was hit by a massive attack in 2020 when hackers took over the accounts of some of the world's most famous people.
Mudge was one of the top 5 or 6 executives at the company.
Zatko is represented by John Tai, who founded Whistleblower Aid, the same group that represented Facebook whistleblower Frances Haugen.
We are in touch with the law enforcement agencies. They're taking this seriously.
Twitter is pushing back, saying Zatko is peddling a narrative about our privacy and data security practices that is riddled with inconsistencies and inaccuracies and lacks important context. When we spoke to Zatko and his lawyer, they said that the lawful whistleblower disclosure process only allows them to talk about these issues in general terms. For specific allegations about Twitter, they referred us to Zatko's disclosure.
I'm not going to go into details, but I will say that Mudge stands by the disclosure and the allegations in there.
CNN and the Washington Post obtained a copy of the disclosure from a senior Democratic official on Capitol Hill. In it, Zatko claims nearly half of Twitter's employees have access to some of the platform's main critical controls.
There's an analogy of an airplane. So you get on an airplane and every passenger and the attendant crew all have access to the cockpit, to the controls. You know, that's entirely unnecessary. It might be easy, but it's too easy to accidentally or intentionally turn an engine off.
Twitter accounts belonging to a whole lot of famous people.
That kind of access contributed to the massive attack in the summer of 2020 when hackers, 2 of them teenagers, tricked a couple of Twitter employees into letting them into Twitter's systems. That gave them access to accounts, including that of then presidential candidate Joe Biden.
I don't have to tell you the significance of being able to breach the Twitter accounts with many millions of followers, including of leading politicians 3 months from a presidential election.
In the disclosure, you quote from a Wired magazine article that says, "But if a teenager with access to an administration panel can bring the company to its knees, just imagine what Vladimir Putin can do."
Foreign intelligence agencies have the resources to identify vulnerabilities that could have systemic effects across an entire platform, across the whole internet.
Twitter told CNN that since the 2020 hack, it had improved these access systems and had trained staff to protect themselves against hacking.
If you're running any system, the more people that have access to the main switches, that's a very risky situation.
Yes, absolutely. I'm talking in generalities, just large tech companies need to know what the risks are, and then they also need to have an appetite to go fix it.
Zacko also claims Twitter has been misleading about how many fake accounts and bots are on its platform. That's an issue that Elon Musk has made central to his attempt to get out of a deal to buy the company.
I guess right now I'm sort of debating the number of bots on Twitter.
There will be suspicions of the timing of this. Are you guys carrying water for Elon Musk?
Absolutely not. We've been following the news just like everyone else, but that has nothing to do with his decisions or with the content of what was sent in to U.S. law enforcement agencies.
Mudge hasn't been talking to Musk in the background or anything like that?
Not at all.
Zacko says he was fired by Twitter in January of this year after he tried to raise the alarm internally. He points the finger at Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal, saying he has worked to hide Twitter's security vulnerabilities from the board.
I suspect that Twitter might try to paint it like this, that Mudge got fired and he's trying to retaliate against the company.
Absolutely not. This is not any kind of personal issue for him. He was eventually fired in January of this year, but he hasn't given up on trying to do that job.
In response to the allegations, Twitter told CNN security and privacy had long been a priority at Twitter. As for Zacko, they said he, quote, was fired from his senior executive role at Twitter more than 6 months ago for poor performance and leadership. He now appears to be opportunistically seeking to inflict harm on Twitter, its customers, and its shareholders.
Your whole perception of the world is made from what you are seeing, reading, and consuming online. And if you don't have an understanding of what's real, what's not, yeah, I think this is pretty scary.
Are you nervous?
Yeah. This wasn't my first choice. I just want to make the world a better place, a safer place. The levers that I have to do it are through security, information, and privacy.
Of course, there's a lot to this story. A big part of it will become the bots, Elon Musk, and we are just getting a reaction from Elon Musk's lawyer, Alex Spiro, who told us this morning that they've already actually issued a subpoena for Zacko, for the whistleblower. They found his exit and that of other key employees curious in light of what we have been finding. So even before this disclosure came to light this morning, Musk's lawyers have been wondering, why was that guy kicked out of the company?
And that's new news. I mean, that's just in.
Right
That's
now.
a fresh response from this report that you're just putting up this morning for CNN, Donny. Stick around. We've got a lot to talk about with this. Obviously, there are national security and business implications. So joining us now, CNN Chief Business Correspondent Christine Romans and CNN contributor and author of The Only Plane in the Sky, Garrett Graff. And Garrett, you've written extensively about national security. And I do want to start with the national security implication here, because when a whistleblower says that Twitter's a threat to national security and democracy, that sounds alarming. Why exactly? What do you see in this that is of such concern?
So I think there are two things that really stand out to me. One is just the sheer credibility of the whistleblower. I mean, Peter Zacko, that's the name he's using today. Anyone in cybersecurity knows him as Mudge. I mean, this is one of the sort of original hackers in this space, testified before Congress in the 1990s, was a member of the preeminent hacking collective Loft of the 1990s, invented, more or less invented one of the most basic security attacks of all time. This is a warning from Chuck Yeager saying, I'm worried about the danger of that plane. I mean, this is someone that you have to listen to. Now, when you get into what his actual allegations are, what again really stands out is how long Twitter has been working on some of these internal controls, and they still fail. And of course, Mudge was brought on after this incredibly worrisome hack of some of the most prominent most prominent accounts on Twitter. We were all really lucky that attack was a cryptocurrency scam. and not a foreign intelligence service or a hacker trying to start nuclear war. I mean, Twitter in many ways is where wars could start in this moment, and the information could move there faster in an attack than anyone would be able to respond to.
Folks, wow, what an amazing story what's going on with Twitter. One of the major points that I got from the story was that the ex-employee stated that other employees that currently are working within Twitter itself states that they have unauthorized and improper access controls to personal data. Now that really got me concerned here as a cybersecurity researcher myself, and it's very disturbing. Here, folks, we talk about on Cybersecurity Awareness TV about the so-called insider threat. The insider threat is a serious accusation that companies can have, meaning that there's an employee that works within your organization that is disgruntled. This employee is more dangerous than any outside hacker is to have an inside hacker within your organization. If this employee is disgruntled or maybe working for the other side, if you would, this employee can be disruptive within an organization, a company. So Twitter themselves, I'm sure they are working on this to make sure that they have an insider threat policy that they're going through and vetting all of their current employees to make sure that they aren't in a position where they can jeopardize the security postures of the company. This is something, folks, that we all should be aware of in our organizations today, even in your small business, folks. If you have a small operation with 5 or less employees to a company that has hundreds of thousands of employees, you must make sure you have an insider threat policy set up within your business to understand the dangers and the risk involved around it. Like we've always said on the show, folks, Cybersecurity Awareness TV, hashtag stay cyber woke, folks. We'll be back after these messages. Hi, folks. This is Mac Jackson Jr. from Cybersecurity Awareness TV here on the WWDBTV on the Roku network. Streaming live. You can find us there, folks, as well. I want to tell you about how you could support us, how you can support our show. It takes a lot of research of what we do to find clips and interviews with legal experts and law enforcement experts on cybersecurity awareness techniques and prevention to protect you and your business from cyber attacks. And one of the best ways, folks, is to join us on our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Mac Jackson Jr. That's patreon.com/Mac Jackson Jr. Folks, hashtag stay cyberwoke. Hi folks, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In segment 3, as we do every week, we talk about what can you do to protect yourselves, some tips to protect yourselves from cyber attacks. Well, as a cybersecurity researcher and a consultant, I have told you guys for years about making sure you have proper password management systems set up within your organization, right? Absolutely. And I've also stated to you, as of that point in time of my tips to you, that at that time, that was the best advice that I could give to you. Well, folks, we're going to take it a next step further, because like I said, nothing in the world of cybersecurity is correct forever. There's always a time where hackers can try to break through the armor. And unfortunately, that has happened to one of a company that I do recommend on the show, and that is called LastPass. LastPass recently had a data breach. That's right, folks. They had a data breach. However, which is really interesting about the data breach that LastPass had within their organization is that the data is encrypted. So the hackers can't do anything. They can't see it and do anything. So basically, it's reported that the hackers were able to see information, but not any personal identifiable information of any of their customers or clients because the data has been encrypted. Again, if you lose your password on your particular laptop or desktop device and you were to call LastPass and try to get it back, well, they can't help you with your own data because it's encrypted. That is the type of security behind companies like LastPass and others. So the point of all this, folks, is to tell you that hackers will continue on a daily basis to try to exploit you and exploit your data. It is best to have some kind of password management system connected to your data than not to have any at all. So I still recommend you out there to take a look at LastPass as a password management system, as well as all the other ones that are out there. Definitely make your choice. Definitely select one. I'm still using LastPass because they are proactive, as all cybersecurity companies are proactive, and they're looking for internal vulnerabilities within their system and correcting them and fixing them with updates. So I definitely want to share that with you. It's very, very important. And again, it's about the password, which is the first line of defense. That's the first level where hackers or criminals or scammers will try to acquire your information, is to acquire your password. Make sure you change it regularly, and make sure you have a password that is easy for you to understand and harder for the hacker. And again, how we do this is we change the word from password to passphrase. You create a passphrase, folks, that is longer than the word password, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is still the #1 passwords being used across the country now with industry. You make sure you have a passphrase set up within your organization that you can understand, and it's harder for the hackers. For your work as well as your home computer, and you tell your family and members of your family, your home network as well, because that's the next level of where hackers are trying to get your information. Next, folks, are our smartphones. I was talking to a group of entrepreneurs this morning here in the west side of Las Vegas at a small business fair about the vulnerabilities within their smartphones, to be aware of text messagings that you're getting, and these text messages have links within them. You will get a text message from a random number that you may not know of, or sometimes these hackers are very, very sophisticated and send you a text message from a number that you may be aware of that's forwarded to your particular phone number. Looking at the text message has a link, and in this link, if you click on it, the link could possibly compromise your smart device, which in turn, the malware will stay on your smart device until you are in a location or connect to a wireless device from your office or another vendor or someone else's network, and spread the actual malware or virus. So folks, you need to be very, very cautious of this. If you receive any text messages from people that you don't know, wanting you to click on a link, please vet it and verify it. As a president that once said to us of the United States, trust but verify, folks. Trust but verify. Make sure that that link that you've gotten from someone is secure before you click on it. Folks, that's all we have for this week. There's more every week. We thank you for joining us and being part of our show. And remember, the favor you could do for us here at WWDBTV and Cybersecurity Awareness TV is to share this information with people that you know. And letting them know, folks, the more people that know about these types of tips and awareness, the harder it is for the hackers to compromise our data and our information. So until next week, folks, as we say every week on the show, #StayCyberWoke. We'll see you next week. Thank you.